Hey, S to the Kyler.
Hello, D to the V'd. What's up?
Well, I was thinking about trying a mac and grilled cheese sandwich. I love mac and cheese. I love grilled cheese. Maybe together, I'd love them even more. What are you up to?
I'm designing some posters.
What for?
I'm making these protect the bird signs. I'm gonna let everyone know exactly what's going on.
Why do the birds need protecting? Are the squirrels getting too aggressive with their acorn throwing again?
Worse, I read an article about what's going on here in town. They have this awful idea where they want to scare away the local birds because they think they're pests.
And how are they going to do that? I have some suggestions for music they could play that really clears a room.
Well, they've got these flying falcon drones. They're decoys, and their eyes shoot lasers.
Lasers?
And birds hate hot pepper, so these drones spray hot pepper too.
Lasers and hot pepper spray? Hold up. Are you sure this isn't just a joke?
It's not. The news about drones has been going around for a couple days now.
Really? I haven't heard anything.
Well, a couple of days ago, my friends Sari and Isabella posted a video of the mayor announcing the drones. Then, earlier today, Austin DM'd me an article that explains everything that's going on.
Did you double check with the local newspaper or the city's official website?
I didn't go that far into it.
Okay, it sounds like you learned about this drone situation from social media and friends.
Isn't that where we all get our news from?
Yes, for sure. But since Sari and Isabel aren't official news sources, it's important to consider if it's actually true. You know, like check with a trustworthy news source.
Okay. But why would someone even bother writing a fake article? Or creating a fake video? If they have that much free time, they can help me write my English essay. You're making me question everything.
I know, and that's not necessarily the point. But it is important to be critical and ask ourselves, how can we make sure the information we read and share online is credible?
Good question. Please do tell.
First off, when reading or watching anything online, we really have to read it closely. You kind of have to be like a detective, looking for the clues that might let you know something is not credible or trustworthy.
Thinking like a detective. I like that.
Based on what you just told me, that bird story has more holes in it than my favorite basketball socks. My initial hunch is that it might be someone's idea of a joke. Maybe they wrote an outrageous article that could spread all over the internet.
Well, reading it made me upset. I couldn't get my head around why anyone would want to harass sweet little birdies, you know? I guess if somebody wanted to trick me into sharing the article, the best way to do it is to get a big emotional reaction from me.
Yeah, people put untrue information online all the time, either by mistake or to be funny. But sometimes they're trying to purposely mislead or deceive you.
If this turns out to be fake, I'll be so annoyed. I spent a lot of money on glitter glue for the posters I'm printing.
Printing? Very old school, Sky. You know you can use the internet to make petitions.
So not as much fun as making physical posters, David. You can't sprinkle glitter on a PDF.
True, but before you continue working on those posters, let's dig deeper to see if your sources are trustworthy. Let's do some close reading of the article Austin sent you.
Sure. Austin's always sending me interesting environmental stuff. And the article's headline is, Bye Bye Birdies. New flying drone program takes flight. Lasers and chili powder pester pigeons. Okay, maybe the headline is a bit dramatic, but that's so people want to click on it. It still could be real.
You're right, it could be real, but my detective senses are going off. Here's what I think. There's a chance that this article is biased.
Which means...
It's when someone shows a strong opinion or preference for or against something.
Well, I know Austin might be a little biased. He cares a lot about protecting nature. But he's not the one who wrote this article. I guess since we can't dust for fingerprints, we'll have to take a closer look at the article.
Let's do it.
Looks like the article's from someone's personal blog. If we go to the About Me section, a high school senior named Ellie who's way into birds. Oh, look, she even has a bird filter on her photo. Look at her little beak.
Yes, this is starting to sound kind of biased. She's very into bird liberty.
Bird liberty, but maybe not credibility.
So we've decided this article might be biased. What's left to do is look for corroboration.
As in, we are trying to look for a trustworthy source that can confirm the information on Ellie's blog?
Exactly.
Yikes. I'm actually not seeing anything about drones disguised as birds that shoot lasers and chili powder. There are a bunch of articles about the pigeon problem near the post office. Say that 3 times fast. But no flying robot birds.
There you go. Laserbeak looks like some classic misinformation.
No matter how cool a laser and pepper shooting falcon is, It's a fake. We've uncovered the truth. All right, this article cannot be trusted. It's got to be a phony.
Mystery solved. Well done, detective.
I'm really glad we figured out none of that was true before I shared it all over. My mom doesn't even know there was going to be a 30-person bird rally at my house. Clearly, it's important to think about what we read and share online. I should totally text Austin to let him know that the article he shared is misinformation. And I'll also let him know that...
Sounds to me like you're about to start dishing out some hot tips.
Yes, I am. First, pause and think before you believe or share. Get a gut check on how you're feeling about what you read online. Strong feelings, either good or bad, are usually a sign that you should take a closer look before you act.
Right, lots of these phony articles are designed to get you all charged up.
Next, we need to think about how we get our information. Ask yourself, is the source trustworthy?
Sometimes it can be hard to tell, so you'll have to dig a little deeper.
Right. You'll have to put on your detective hat. Read the article and check for bias.
You want to consider who's writing what you're reading.
Think like an owl.
Who is this coming from?
Who benefits if you share their article?
Who's behind all of this? Bum, bum, bum!
And finally, look for corroboration. Can you confirm the information somewhere else? From a trustworthy source?
If you can't find corroboration, it could be misinformation.
I think we're getting good at this. Maybe we should start a detective agency, David. I can work on the posters now. Posters with glitter because, well, I've got some extra.
Okay, guys, so that brings us to the end of our video. So we're going to go on to discuss a couple things in the associated handout. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to pull that up. All right. Just give me 1 sec, guys. There we go. Okay, so this is the handout that we're going to discuss together. So it's just a couple questions like we've been doing the past couple of weeks that we're going to kind of brainstorm together and have a discussion about. So I'm going to start us off. So when you go online and can find answers to just about anything, you might also come across things that are questionable. So in the video that we watched together, Skylar's almost tricked into believing that a fake article is real. David helps her check whether the information that she found online is trustworthy and came up with strategies to identify online misinformation. So think about the clues that helped them decide the article was fake. So in this activity that we're going to do together, we're going to be thinking about strategies to help us connect with vigilance and not fall into misinformation. So a couple words that were used in the video that I just want to quickly go over. The first one is credible. That means be able to be believed or trustworthy. The word bias means showing a strong opinion or preference for or against something or someone. And then the word corroboration is an additional source that confirms or supports a news story, an article, or a piece of information. So if you want to kind of confirm something, that would be corroborating. So step one, we're going to reflect. So the first question is, where do you usually hear or get the news from? And do you consider those sources trustworthy? Why or why not? The second question that we're going to discuss is, have you or someone else ever shared misinformation accidentally, and what was it? So those are the first two questions. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give us a couple minutes to think about this and brainstorm, and then we're going to have a group discussion about it. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to think about it. Okay, I'm going to let everyone continue thinking about this, and I'm going to have Jonathan share his thoughts. I know that, Jonathan, you raised your hand, so you're welcome to go ahead.
Yeah, I mainly wanted to answer like the first part because I haven't really seen like I haven't seen myself like sharing misinformation a lot because I've been really vigilant on looking like okay, because where I usually get the news or hear the news, it's like explaining the video. A lot of it is on social media. Using social media applications is where mainly you get the news. Like for me myself, I utilize I utilize using Twitter a lot, and the news there is not trustworthy at all. And the reason why I come to that conclusion is because a lot of it is like explained in the video. A lot of it is biased. A lot of it, like the article, like the company that created this article is already like slanted towards a view already. They're already slanted.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, that's that's mainly where like I've seen a lot of news, especially from Twitter. Like I've seen so like Twitter is pretty much like a news application at this point. Everyone just talks about
Mm.
news, what's going on in the world, news, and none of it is. I feel like a majority of it is not trustworthy at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. That's a very good point. So you're basically saying that Twitter is the main place that you kind of get your news, and that, like you're saying, a lot of it is like skewed to, a certain bias or a certain perspective on something. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that. I'll share that I usually get my news, and this probably isn't good, but I'm on TikTok more than anything else. So I get a lot of my news from there. And I think we can all agree that TikTok definitely has some fake news. But then again, I also feel like it's a platform that's not as censored in a way. So I think that we see a lot more on that platform. Does anyone else agree or have any thoughts about TikTok?
I totally agree with you, Summer. I
Mhm.
get a lot of my news from TikTok, mostly most of my news from TikTok,
Yeah.
because it is uncensored. And I tend to find it mostly trustworthy, depends on who it's coming from.
Yeah.
But I went ev like mostly every single time I check like go online and do research on these news articles that are coming from these TikTokers. They're mostly credible
Mm-hmm.
and like yeah, mostly credible. So I feel like TikTok is a pretty good news source, but you do
Yeah,
have to like do your research and stuff
for
to see if
sure.
it's real or not. And to the second question, actually,
Mhm.
my mom has shared misinformation accidentally to me
Mhm.
from Facebook. I feel like Facebook, there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like it was saying that we were gonna get like an 8.2 earthquake like next week. And then I was all scared. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna get a big earthquake. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not trying to die right now. And next week came and then nothing happened. So
Yeah. That is scary. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Brandon. That's a good point. And I totally agree with you on the TikTok part that when I've done my research as well or looked something up, it tends to be pretty accurate, the stuff that we see on TikTok. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's also because it's not as filtered or censored compared to other platforms. But like you said, we still have to kind of pay attention because not everything we see is 100% like real and factual. But yeah, that is definitely funny about your mom and the earthquake. I'm glad that that never happened. I'm very glad that it was fake news because that would be scary. Karen, go ahead.
I also get my news from TikTok, but I also have like the KTLA 5 app, the app, and then the ABC7 app, and then I follow them on Instagram too. I know that's not always like reliable because sometimes they're really biased, but yeah, but I also get it from TikTok.
Okay, what was the name of the app you said?
It's the KTLA 5 app and then
ATL.
the ABC7. It's like for Los Angeles.
Okay, that makes sense. KTLA. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a good place to get your news from. Exactly, like different news channels. But again, I also feel like even news channels can be biased and skewed. So definitely still important to really think about what we're hearing and, follow our intuition. And if we feel like something is not right, a lot of the time, we're right. So Jamal, yeah, go ahead, please.
Um, for me, I usually my news from like YouTube, but like it's specific people that watch because like their content goes over that stuff. So
Mhm.
and usually they try to stay up to date with the news and let us know what's going on with that or if it finished and stuff like that. And then for the second question, actually recently my sister gave me some misinformation because she saw on social media that there was this place that was letting people sign up for vouchers, but turns out that was a fake place. So
Oh,
yeah, that was kind of a big issue. But
yeah.
luckily I didn't do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that you didn't fall into that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Jamal. That's a great point. So you actually get a lot of your news from YouTube. I don't usually hear that, but that's really interesting. So you probably watch like a YouTuber and like they kind of like recap different things like latest in the news type of thing. Is that kind of how it works or?
Yeah, that's what I do also.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like they go over videos, they go over news posts, article posts, stuff like that. And like they
Okay.
usually make sure it's legit sources and then like try to follow up with that source to make sure everything's good.
That's great. Yeah, that's great to know. Thank you, Jamal, for sharing that. And thank you, Addie. That's great to know that you guys do that. And I'm glad that you guys do your research after him. That's awesome. All right. Does anyone else have any thoughts, or does anyone want to share maybe where they get their news from, or if you've ever had an experience about sharing misinformation? Does anyone else have any thoughts? No? Okay. That's all right. Let's move on. Thanks everyone for sharing. So I'm going to skip that because I think we kind of covered that in our discussion. So this second step that we're going to do together is we're going to basically discuss when you read online, or when you read news online, you can practice being vigilant by. So we're going to discuss different things that you can do, and then you can help stop the spread of misinformation by, and then we're also going to discuss a couple points. So I'm going to give everyone a second to think about this. Basically, what it means by being vigilant is kind of just like being careful, like paying attention. So we want to discuss like ways that we can do that. So I'm going to give you guys a second to think about this, and then we will discuss. And really anything that comes to mind, you're welcome to share. You don't have to have like an answer to both of these. Anything that comes to mind, you're welcome to say it out loud. Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off, and then I'm going to go to Jonathan, who has his hand raised. So when I read the news online, something I can do to be vigilant is I can check the source that's giving the information or giving the news to see if it's a credible source. So that's one thing we can do. And then I can stop the spread of misinformation by doing research on the topic prior to like sending it to someone, just confirming that it's actually legit and real before sending it off, because that can obviously be chaotic when you're spreading fake news. And, you know, kind of like what Brandon was saying, the earthquake thing, like that can cause a lot of stress to people. So definitely doing my research beforehand, I think is very important. We'll go on to Jonathan. Jonathan, did you have any points?
Yeah, I had a small thought. I don't really know how to like word it without sounding kind of like I
That's
don't
okay.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I like wanted to say is like try to be like try not to like fall for like like headlines that like just look super crazy that like it's like oh my God, I have to click on this because it's like the term is called like clickbait, of course.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of the video with like Skylar. She was saying like this article is saying like there's killer bird drones. Like what is going on? I need to click on this killer drones. What is going on? Like I feel like just reading off the headline alone, I feel like you could already like establish like maybe this is like they're like being super hyperbolized. Like this is not that's like this is not
Yeah.
actually what's happening. So yeah, I feel like being vigilant. Like when you see a title like that, maybe don't be like because they're trying to get a reaction out of you. So maybe just don't like
100%.
feed into that. Yeah, just don't feed into that reaction.
Yeah, that's
'Cause-
actually a very, very good point, Jonathan. I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's a great point. And I think we can all agree that we've seen like titles that have been, or like
yeah,
even like videos, like the thumbnails that have just been like something super crazy to get you to click on it, that type of thing. So like you said, Jonathan, that's a great idea, is to really just pay attention and don't fall into that. And, you know, really like do your research into what you're reading or what you're watching type of thing before, you know, yeah. That
yeah,
makes
because
perfect sense.
yeah, because I feel like the ones that like clickbait their titles, they just want you to click onto their article. Like they just
Yeah,
want you to just click
yeah.
it. Like that's it. Because then they get their little
Amazing.
cents, their money. Because if you click on an article, they get money for that. But yeah, so
Great.
like and also like I guess to stop the spread of misinformation, this like explanation. I don't know. In my head, it seems kind of like a cheap explanation, but like make yourself aware of like
Mhm.
like even us talking about this is gonna like help us stop like falling for misinformation. So just like becoming aware of like the fact that articles have biases, the fact that
Yeah.
a lot yeah, like a lot of people don't even know that articles have biases, which is kind of crazy.
Oh
Like
my gosh,
yeah,
100%. Or
yeah,
even like news channels, like people
yeah,
don't realize that they're like very biased, like
yeah,
even politically, right? Like some news
yeah,
channels are like very like liberal, some
hmm
news channels are very conservative, like Republican.
yeah,
Like you have to think about that as well. But that's a great point, Jonathan. Yeah, thanks for bringing
yeah.
that up.
Just acknowledge the biases because like
Yeah,
everyone is biased.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, let's move on to Brittany.
Yeah. When I see or read news online, um, what I do is I corroborate, just like they mentioned. Um, for example, I also get my news sometimes from YouTube, not all the time. But what I see, I do two things. I check the comments
Yeah.
see what people are saying, because sometimes people that are going to point out, oh, this is misinformation. That is not true. And then I go on Google and I search it up, because if it's something big, multiple people are going to be talking about it. And I'm going to check the like reliable sources and reliable websites to see if that is true. Um, because I think I saw a short last time on YouTube, and it was an interview, and they cut the interview to make the little short, but it looked like the person was talking about something else.
Yeah.
And then when I checked the comment section, they were like, "Oh no, he wasn't talking about this. He was talking about something else in the entire interview."
Right.
So
So they kind of like
that's
took it out of context type of thing. Yeah.
yes, those are two things that I do. And then I do the same thing to spread to stop the spread of misinformation. Check before I say anything to anybody else.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brittany. Thanks for sharing all those tips. That's really great. I'm glad that you do your research. That's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Victor, go ahead.
For when reading on news online, I usually check if it's like sometimes fake news can also be like joke headlines and stuff like that. For example, there might be one saying, I don't know, Kim Jong-un is the sexiest man alive or something like that. Sometimes that's a joke, but that could still be that's still spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
And also ways to avoid that is like, don't if you're on social media apps like Twitter, Instagram, I think you shouldn't really share news because you might also be spreading like misinformation that you might not know.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, was that it, Victor? Okay, sorry, I
yeah,
didn't want
yeah,
to cut
yeah,
you
that was
off.
it.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. That's a very good point. And I think I like when you said like, even not trying to like post too much about news, like not trying to share too much because you don't really know if you're 100% like if it's misinformation or not. Because even like sometimes something could be blowing up, like some specific news, and you would think it's legit because of the fact that there's so many people posting it. But again, that doesn't mean it's 100% accurate. So it's probably best to just like avoid it completely. Or even like, yeah, maybe just like directly sending it to like some people if you know it's actually like a fact, that's not as bad. But I think like posting it and having like everyone, like hundreds of people know about it, I feel like that's really spreading a lot of misinformation. So go ahead, David. Yeah.
Okay, so I would usually like trust the news from like official accounts. Like if you get news from like news, it's usually like true. But if you get a news from like a person, it's I mean it's just not true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Exactly. Looking at the source, like where are we getting this information from? That's a very good point. But again, I feel like that kind of ties back to even specific sources, like some sources are not always credible, and also some sources are biased. So even though the source itself might look like it's like a big news, like a news channel or whatever it might be, you still have to think critically and think, okay, like the perspective that they're giving us and the message they're giving us isn't necessarily 100% reality. So that's something as well to keep in mind. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, David. That's a very, very good point. And I think I saw Jonathan with his hand up. So Jonathan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, it's because Victor said something that like actually reminded me when he mentioned like there's fake like there's like articles that like will like it'll be a joke like saying like Kim Jong-un is a sexy man. I've seen that like so much on Twitter, and it's crazy how much of like those fake articles. It's not even like fake because the article itself is like meant as a joke. So they like the person who made it like they're supposed to say, oh, this is a joke, like this is not real. But a lot of people actually take that news and they just read the headline. They're like, oh, this is real news. This is real news. Like, oh my god. And I've seen that so much on Twitter because like the major like publications that are like joke news, it's like I think they're called like the Babylon Bee and it's like the Onion, and like a lot of like every month on Twitter there's like a new article from them that's going viral because like people believe it, even though like
Yeah.
the article would say something dumb like I don't even know like onions are now like $20 million. I don't know, it'll just be something so stupid, but a lot of people end up believing it, and I guess I could say that ties back to like don't just read the headline and instantly fall into that or like believe it
Yeah.
because it's just like it's so dumb sometimes. Yeah.
100% for sure. And also that kind of makes me think, like, I think that some people would want to share that. Like, let's say it's like a super crazy title about something or headline, they would want to share it, even though they know it's not like actually true, just to get a reaction from the person they're sharing it with as well. So that can also kind of spread misinformation for sure. So thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. That's a great point. It's kind of nice how sometimes people say things and it kind of triggers certain things in you and you start thinking of ideas and stuff. That's awesome. Okay, great. So I think that we basically covered all of this. Let me just see this last point here. So we're just going to reflect together. So if given the option, discuss the reflection questions above and share the tips that you learn with a partner or family member. How do they find credible news sources? What do they do that you've not considered? I think what we're going to do for this one is I kind of want you guys to think from the discussions we've had today, is there something that someone said or someone shared that made you think of something differently? Or is there something that you want to do differently going forward when it comes to, you know, making sure a news source is credible or getting any sort of news or information online? Is there a certain kind of technique, or I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but a certain strategy that you want to do going forward? So that's what we're going to think about. How do you want to make a better change in that area? So for example, I'll start with myself just to kind of give an example. For myself, I want to do better at really checking like the resources and checking the source of the information. I feel like sometimes, like I do that sometimes, but I feel like I don't do it often enough. And I think I should more. Like I was saying before, I do get a lot of my news on TikTok. And I think that even though, like Brandon was saying, a lot of it is credible, I don't always, you know, go the extra mile and check to make sure that it actually is. So I think that that's something I want to do going forward. Does anyone else have any thoughts or anything that you guys want to do to, you know, really ensure that you're not spreading misinformation and really making sure that the news that you're getting is actually like factual? If anyone has any,
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it. Go ahead, Brandon.
I'll probably like start incorporating what Victor said about like if you think it's false information, like just don't share it at all. Because I tend to share news with like buddies of mine or like family members. Um, but sometimes like I'm not too like sure that this is credible,
Yeah.
even though I do some research, because sometimes the articles be like so like low level.
Yeah.
That sometimes you can't even find them with one research. So I'm not. I'll probably stop doing that.
Yeah. That's a good point, Brandon. That's great. Does anyone else have any thoughts on what you kind of want to do going forward? Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of like what you and what Brittany brought up, like just like looking into it more, like actually going
Yeah.
into like the articles itself and like looking into it, making sure that there's no like slant. Look through like the like if they have sources, like click on the sources to see if they're actually available. Because if like an article doesn't have any sources available, like where do they even get this information from? Like this is just like out of thin air pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, like what Brittany pretty much said, like just look into it, honestly. Just keep looking into it to make sure it's correct.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And trying to kind of identify if there's any like biases to the source, right? So trying to think about, you know, this specific resource, how is this bias or how is this other one biased, and trying to keep that in mind. Yeah, that's great, Jonathan. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Does anyone else have any thoughts or anything that they want to share going forward? No? Okay, that's great. So I think that what we'll do, let me just take a quick look. Okay. So we're going to just recap what we kind of learned today with a couple points. So these are important tips for connecting with vigilance. So the first thing, like we discussed, so pause and think before sharing, rather than just clicking share the second that you see like a really crazy headline or something. Really think about it and try not to share unless you're 100% sure that it is credible. The second point is to consider if the source of information is trustworthy. That kind of recaps what we've been talking about today and really looking at if there's biases. That brings us to the third point, check for bias. Again, checking for bias, I think is hard. Sometimes it's hard to know if there is, but try to just pay attention and think about, you know, the source and kind of who they are that's spreading that information or what type of news channel it is, things like that. And then the last one is look for corroboration. So that's kind of doing research on that topic to make sure that the information is accurate before spreading it or before telling people about it. So I think that basically recaps today.